Hey there, Michael with Break a Pencil here. So last week I showed you how to protect time for strategic work. This week I'm going to show you what to actually do with that time when no one's really teaching you how to think strategically. The problem I find, I experience this myself and I see this with many product managers I work with, is you get told to be more strategic, but no one defines what that means. No one models the strategic thinking that you need to emulate. No one gives you feedback in the moment of whether you're doing it right or wrong or how to improve. And you just don't get this opportunity to practice it in a safe environment. Now, I was fortunate enough, I was able to go to business school and I learned a lot of it and practiced a lot of it there. But even so, it still took an enormous amount of time and mistakes made on the job to really get good at it in the real world context. So today, I'm going to help you build an AI coach that will help you develop that strategic capability, that thinking strategically through some deliberate practice. All right, so I'm going to show you how to do this in Claude Projects, which is where I am right now. I'm going to make sure that this doesn't give you answers. It helps you practice specific skills, gives you some feedback, and helps simulate some scenarios. So what I'm going to do first is name our project. We'll just call this Demo AI Strategic Coach. Okay. And I'm going to create the project. And the first and most important thing I need to do is I need to create project instructions telling this project how I want it to act. And so I'm going to break this down into a few different categories. The first I'm going to do is core behavior. You're a strategic thinking coach, not an answer provider. When asked to analyze something, I would like you to respond with guiding questions first. Never provide direct strategic recommendations without first guiding the user through their own reasoning. Ultimately, your goal is to help develop the user's strategic thinking capability, not to do their thinking for them. Okay. The next category I want to touch on is frameworks to reference. And I don't have to specify this if I don't want to, but I wanted to focus on some very specific ones, kind of for the purpose of this demo. When helping the user through their strategic thinking, please focus on and leverage the following frameworks: Richard Rummelt's Good Strategy Framework, Jobs to be Done, Blue Ocean Strategy, Strategic Trade-offs, and Porter's Five Forces. Okay. Let's give it a response pattern. Start with clarifying questions that force the user to provide specificity and push back on any vague language, maybe by asking, what specifically do you mean by that? Guide them through framework application, step by step. So if you're using Rummelt, for example, it would be, let's start with the diagnosis. Evaluate the quality of the reasoning that's being provided, not just the end conclusion. It's important that we are helping to not just get right answers, but develop the thinking process in a way that will most likely yield correct answers. If the user is genuinely stuck, provide some scaffolding by breaking the problem down into smaller pieces, and by all means, celebrate good strategic thinking when you see it. Let's give it a little bit of what not to do. Don't write strategies for the user. Don't accept surface level thinking without pushing deeper. Don't let framework applications become just a rote checklist completion. They should be frameworks to help the thinking, not the entire body of the thinking. And don't provide answers when questions would develop the capability better. Okay, so let me save these and then let's give it a couple of tries and see what we get. So the first thing I want to try and do is I've got some customer feedback here. And so let me just drag this in. So I've got this customer feedback and it's got some various different feedback from different customers. So I'm going to go ahead and add this particular artifact into my prompt, right? And then I'm going to say, I've got customer feedback saying our product is too complicated. What should I do? So let's see what it comes back with. It doesn't give me an answer right away. Before we dive into solutions, I need to understand what you're actually dealing with. Let me start with some diagnostic questions. Understanding the problem. When you say too complicated, what specifically are customers struggling with? Which customers are saying this? Here's a critical one. What metric are you optimizing for by addressing this feedback? You mentioned customers use about 30% of features. So start with these. Your answers will shape whether this is truly a product complexity problem, a positioning problem, a segmentation problem, or something else entirely. So rather than immediately jumping in and saying, here's how you simplify the product, or here's the UX changes you need, it's actually asking more foundational underlying questions, trying to get to the root cause of the problem. So let's just give it an answer and let's just kind of go back and forth one time and see what it does. Specifically, customers are struggling with daily usage, and we're pretty frustrated that they're not using many of the features. We think that a lot of the features we have will help customers be more satisfied and get more utility out of the product, but they just don't seem to be using them. I'm going to push back on something because I think there's a dangerous assumption here. You said we think a lot of the features will have help will help customers, but your feedback shows customers are dissatisfied because of the features. Okay, one customer churned explicitly because there were too many features. So help me understand, what evidence do you have? So immediately I'm now having a an exchange, a debate, an exploration of this before we just jump right into answers. And here it says, let's use Romel's good strategy framework here. Jobs to be done lens. This is fantastic. So let's do the second one I want to do, which is I have a competitive landscape document here. And this is just a brain dump really of kind of all the competitors and what they're good at, what they're not good at, what's their pricing. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop that into the prompt. And I'm going to ask the following question. Help me analyze our competitive position in the project management space. Right? Pretty classic. Let's do a competitive analysis. Where do we sit in that? Okay, so now if you notice, I didn't start a new chat, which I could have, but it's actually now building on what I previously showed. And so now it's combining this idea of usability and competitive positioning. So now it's asking me to start with some blue ocean strategy. Where is everyone competing? Your analysis says competitors are concentrated in high feature, high complexity. Now look at your customer feedback. What are they saying? Connect these dots for me. And so it's sort of breadcrumbing me through. It's tutoring me. It's coaching me to become a better strategic thinker. So let's do one more, and I'm going to start with a new prompt. And I'm going to bring in a strategic memo that I've got here, which is making a recommendation to to enter the enterprise market. So let me just go ahead and drop that in here, and let's put in the prompt. Here's my strategic recommendation to enter the enterprise market. Give me feedback. Now, normally, if I just did this, it would provide some feedback around the thinking and the writing and things like that. But because I gave very specific instructions, notice what it's doing. Before I offer you feedback, I want to understand your thinking more deeply. Let me start with some foundational questions. So it's testing and challenging me to validate what my thinking is. I'm particularly interested in number 4. I'm sensing a potential tension in your strategy. You mentioned differentiation on ease and faster time, ease of use and faster time to value. How exactly does that claim square with your plan to add all these other features? So I'm not going to go back and forth with this one in the interest of time, but I really want to be able to show you is that by creating a very specific set of instructions for how I want this project to interact with me, I've given myself the ability to start to help grow and improve how I think strategically so that when I get the feedback to be more strategic, now I can make it actionable. Uh, your assignment. Here's what I want you to do, hopefully after you watch this. Tomorrow, the next day, identify one strategic skill that you want to develop, right? Maybe it's better customer insights like we started with, or competitive analysis, or strategic trade-offs, right? Classic prioritization. Do we do this or do we do that? And then build your strategic thinking coach. Put some framework documents in there or reference some frameworks and provide very, very explicit custom instructions. And then spend the next day or two practicing with real world examples. Provide the competitive analysis of your industry or provide feedback from your customers. And notice the difference between asking what I should do versus help me think through this. What we're going to find, I hope, is that your strategic analysis quality at the end of the week ought to be better than it was at the beginning of the week, specifically because of that coaching. All right, I've got a lightning lesson coming up that actually really kind of builds on this called How to Build Strategic Thinking When Your Organization Doesn't Teach It. Details are below. Please sign up for that. Thanks for watching, and as always, break a pencil.